The ECOWAS Commission has identified the lack of data as one of the gaps in meeting the challenges of persons living with disabilities in Nigeria. To address this gap, the Commission is set to develop an action plan for inclusiveness for persons with disabilities across the region. This was the focus of a press briefing by the Commission after meeting with leaders of different groups of persons with disabilities in Abuja. Our correspondent Moyo Thomas reports.
Joseph Ogaba lives with a disability. He is visually impaired. Even though he says he has mastered his daily activities, daily living is still very tumultuous.
Getting someone to aid me to a nearby junction or even to a function in town is a problem. And so for visually impaired persons like me, we find it very difficult to move about because of the lack of transportation means.
Beyond this, commuting and other tasks are equally Herculean.
Sometimes visually impaired persons get very stranded at bus stops, trying to stop a vehicle. Sometimes we find it difficult to get help. When somebody even succeeds in getting you a vehicle to board, the driver may ask, who is going to pay? Where is it going to? Instead of communicating with you directly, the driver would rather choose to communicate with the person who has guided you to the vehicle, which for me is ridiculous.
He believes life could be easier if only public infrastructure were put in place that considered the plight of those living with disabilities.
This aspect of the Act is fully implemented in the very shortest possible time. They have a lot to do. They have to put pressure on all the stakeholders concerned. They themselves have to do the needful. They should set the pace by ensuring that all public buildings are designed in such a way that both the visually impaired and persons on wheelchairs can easily navigate their ways around.
As a graduate of mass communication, he says he could still contribute enormously to society if given the opportunity.
For those of us who are still in search of jobs, they should ensure that we are gainfully employed so that we can have a means of livelihood. If I have a means of livelihood, I should be able to save enough money to be able to purchase a car for myself.
While Joseph's challenges are peculiar, others with other forms of impairment also have their own challenges. This lady with a hearing and speaking impairment says doctor's appointment is one of the hardest things, as there are usually no sign language interpreters in Nigerian hospitals. Understanding how to adequately address these daily challenges they have is the essence of the research study ECOWAS is about to undertake.
We as a regional organization, we have a role. And within our role, like she clearly said, is to build synergy. One of the things we do is that we know that some countries are ahead, some are behind. We want to make sure that they are sharing knowledge and best practices on how to include persons with disability. That is another thing that we are doing.
One of the major outcomes of that study, which will kick off any moment from now, will be the development of a plan of action on disability inclusion for the entire ECOWAS region.
Other concerns raised by the executives of persons living with disabilities at this meeting border on vaccination and its impact on persons living with disabilities.
There are issues around persons with disability and vaccine. So we are challenging them to do like a baseline first. If I'm a polio survivor, just give me a shot. You don't know what might happen. I gave them an instance of how I took an anesthesia as a polio survivor because I already had a damaged central nervous system. The impact I had was horrible. I was almost going into coma. So what is the impact on persons with disability? The impact of this vaccine on persons with disability may not have any impact on the blind or the deaf, but those with central nervous system, what happens?
Again, many of us are on the line, which is so we need to lead them.
The proposed plan of action by ECOWAS will help with coordination for better results and help build what is lacking for persons with disabilities in the region. While Nigeria has recorded giant strides in the inclusion of persons with disability, some other West African countries have not done very much for people with disabilities. This is where advocacy of ECOWAS will be more felt. Muria Thomas, TVC News, Abuja.